Hello there. If you've ever tried to build a team or find your place on one, you know just how frustrating that search for the right fit can be. In this explainer, we're going to dig into the core philosophy behind our work at CX25WW. It's a really powerful idea we call the principle of refusal, and it's designed to bring a whole lot of clarity to that search. So here's what we're going to cover. We'll start by looking at the hiring problems we all face today and why the old ways just don't cut it anymore. Then we'll introduce this principle of refusal, show you how it works in the real world, what kind of impact it has, and how it offers a much more intentional way forward. All right, let's kick things off with a feeling that I'm pretty sure we've all had, whether we're the one hiring or the one looking for a job. It seems like such a simple question, right? But the answer, well, it's anything but. For both companies and candidates, the whole process is just full of frustration. It kind of feels like we're all looking for something very specific, but we're just shouting into an empty room. And this right here really shows the two sides of that broken process. On one side, you have employers who are just drowning in a sea of resumes, burning through time and money on interviews that go absolutely nowhere. And on the other, you've got talented candidates feeling totally lost, firing off applications into a black hole, and sometimes landing in roles that just aren't a good fit. It's a system where, honestly, nobody really wins. So, what's the real root cause of this mess? Well, it lies in a really basic assumption that has been driving hiring for, well, forever. For decades, the thinking has always been more is better. Cast the widest net you possibly can to get the most applicants. But this obsession with volume just creates a ton of noise. It makes everyone spend their time sifting and filtering instead of actually connecting. And this slide, it just lays out the result perfectly. It's a cycle that feeds on inefficiency. You start by casting that wide net, which just leads to being completely overwhelmed. To cope, you have to screen based on keywords, which means amazing candidates get missed. And so the final stage, all too often, becomes settling for good enough, which of course leads directly to high turnover and people just not being engaged. The system is almost designed to fail. This is where we need to stop and think differently, like fundamentally differently. We have to move away from this volume trap and towards a new, much more intentional way of thinking. This is the absolute core of that new paradigm. It's a statement that probably feels a little weird, a little counterintuitive, because it goes directly against that more is better mindset we've been taught. And the logic starts right here. See, this isn't about being negative or exclusive. It's about being strategic. The refusal, the no, it happens right at the beginning of the process, because that prevents the much, much bigger cost of having to manage a failure down the road. Every no today is a strategic choice to protect the long-term health of the team and, just as importantly, the career of the individual. It's all about prevention, not reaction. So to wrap that all up neatly, this is the operating principle of refusal. It's the philosophy that guides everything we do at CX25WW. It's a deep commitment to being incredibly selective at the start to protect both the organization and the individual from the high price of a mismatch. Okay, that sounds good as a philosophy, right? But how does it actually work in the real world? Let's take a look at how this idea turns into a repeatable, structured process. And this is a really important point. This is not just about being picky for the sake of it. The CX25W approach is a disciplined and structured methodology designed to align the right person with the right opportunity. Our process kicks off with a really deep analysis that goes way beyond just a resume, to understand a person's goals, their values, their potential. That's followed by some really rigorous vetting that focuses on true alignment. And only then, when we're confident, do we make these curated, intentional introductions, making sure that there's a very high chance of a genuine fit for everyone involved. So what happens when you make that shift? When you stop chasing quantity and you start focusing on quality? Well, the outcomes look very, very different from the traditional model. I mean, just look at the contrast here. The traditional model just drowns you in volume and churn. The selective model, though, completely flips the script. The focus moves from processing tons of applications to identifying true quality. And that naturally leads to stronger teams, better cultural fit, and, most importantly, long-term retention. And this is what it all comes down to. The goal isn't to fill a pipeline with names. It's to make a single, successful connection, finding that one right candidate for that one right role. This totally reframes how we measure success, away from volume and towards the quality of that one final fit. So, we've walked through the problem, the flawed old approach, and a new principle designed to solve it. Let's just wrap up with what this all means for you. If you take anything away from this, let it be these key points. First, hiring is a huge strategic decision. It is not a numbers game. Second, saying no early on is actually an act of respect for everyone's time. Third, the value created by the right fit is just massive. It far outweighs the cost of a longer search. And finally, this intentional approach helps everybody, the employer, the team, and the candidate. And that leaves us with one final question for you to think about. Whether you're an employer, a student, or a professional building your career, is a more thoughtful, more intentional approach to hiring and career building the right path for your long-term goals? If this way of thinking resonates with you and you'd like to understand a little more about how this principle is put into practice, you can explore it further at the CX25WW website.